Okay, so here we are with another Neville Goddard lecture, a text lecture. And I wanted to point something out that's very interesting. The lecture is Your Creative Power. It's from 1965. Now, he starts out by talking about biblical story in Genesis of Isaac and Esau, and it's all this allegory stuff, metaphorical. I don't want to get into that. You know the lecture. You can go read it from beginning to end if you want. And I suggest you do that. But what I wanted to do was search on, sorry for the scrolling, this part. He tells a story of a woman who came to one of his lectures. She told him a story, and she gave him permission to retell it. And basically, she was out in the stores. This was in 1939. And she goes into this Stern department store in New York City, and she took off her hat, and then took a hat she loved and put it on. She thought it was a lovely hat. She liked what she saw in the mirror. She walked around the store, and she came back, and her hat that she had put down to put this new hat on was gone. She called the sales lady and said, "I left my hat here. Where's my hat?" She described the hat. The sales lady said, I just sold it. All these hats are one price, so it need not be priced. They're all the same price, and I just sold it. I'll call the section manager." So she called the section manager, and he described exactly what had happened. The section manager said, "I'm awfully sorry. Any hat in that department you can take with our compliments." Okay? So, so basically, they didn't want any trouble, and the hat was sold. They have the money for it, and so you could take any hat, and it's a compliment of the store. She walked out with the hat, the new hat that she loved. But she told me herself as she walked around the place, she actually walked downstairs to the first floor, walked out onto 6th Avenue with the hat on her head. That's what she was doing while she was walking around. She was walking around out of the store with this hat on her head. In a matter of moments, it happened. Maybe a few days later, she would relate it. So basically, she got this brand new hat for free. She lost her old hat, but I guess she didn't care about that. It's a funny way that she manifested a new hat, right? So he told this story at his lecture, and several weeks later, 4 weeks later, he runs into this other woman who heard this story 4 weeks prior when he told it at his lecture. And she walked past a hat display, like in a store window in New York City again, and they had hats for $17.50. Now, $17.50 doesn't sound like a lot, but if you look back to 1939 and you do inflation adjustment, it's about $400. So that $17.50 today would be like a $400 hat, just to put it in perspective. So she figuratively, in her imagination, put it on her head, and she loved it. She walked up the street, but when she walked back, she would not look into the window to be disillusioned. She went home to her hotel, wouldn't look into the mirror. She took off the imaginary hat and put it on the very top ledge of the closet, and went sound asleep in the belief that her lovely new hat is up there. So she said 10 days later, a friend called and asked her if she was busy that night. She couldn't say yes or no. Basically, he's implying she was a prostitute here. She was part of the oldest profession. And when the friend said, "Are you busy tonight?" she couldn't tell her yes or no because she didn't know if she'd be working. So I said, "Yeah, all right, I'm free." Well, come and see me. I have something for you. So she went to see her friend, and her friend brought out the hat. Not a hat, the hat. And said to her, you know, Ann, I bought this hat. What possessed me, I don't know. Well, when I got home and saw what I looked like in this hat, I wouldn't wear it to a dog fight. But strangely enough, the minute I said that to myself, I said, you know, Ann would look lovely in this hat. So try it on and see if you like it. She brings out the hat. Ann tried it on and loved it. So Ann said to me, this is her question. She said to Neville, Neville, tell me, why didn't God give me the money to buy the hat? Why did he give it to me in the way he gave it? Why didn't he give me the money? I said, Ann, you know you well enough to ask a few very pertinent personal questions. Do you owe any rent? She said, you're so nosy. I said, all right, I'm nosy. I want to ask you a few questions. You owe any rent? She said, yes, 2 weeks. I said, all right. Undoubtedly, you spent $17.50, again, $400 in today's money, a week rent in this hotel, don't you? She said, exactly that much, $17.50. So you owe $35. Now, what price hats do you really buy? Well, I'm going back to 39. In 1939, you bought a $3.50, $4 hat. The $17.50 hat was fantastic. We had a depression. That was just simply, you had to be in the money to think in terms of a $17.50 hat. So I said, now tell me, if you had looked down on the sidewalk and found a $100 bill and you owe 2 weeks' rent, feeling as insecure as you do, would you have bought the hat? And she smiled and said, no, I wouldn't. I would have paid the $35 rent. I would have paid 2 more weeks in advance, another $35. And I certainly wouldn't buy any $17.50 hat because I've never bought a hat in excess of $4 in my life. So I said to her, but tell me, how much money must God give you before he could get you to buy a $17.50 hat? He'd have to give you a fortune to get you to break down to buy a $17.50 hat. So he knew exactly how to give it to you. In the best way possible, he gave it to you. You put it on, you felt the reality of it. You walked up the street, you came by, you didn't look into the window. You didn't look into the glass when you went home. You took it off and put it up, and someone bought it and gave it to you. Didn't charge you 1 nickel for it. Now here is Ann. Ann stumbled upon Jesus Christ and didn't recognize him. Jesus Christ is the creative power and wisdom of God, as told us in the first chapter of the book of Corinthians. Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. She found the creative power of God. She found out how to get a hat, a $17.50 hat, that she had never worn before. And yet she didn't recognize Jesus Christ. Knowing Ann will go to church and cross herself, sit down and genuflect, and do all these things in her church, and pray to some idol that doesn't exist. Pray to some being in time and space that doesn't exist. And she, by dint of stumbling, fell upon Jesus Christ and didn't recognize him. So, there's a lot more to this lecture. But this is the part that grabbed me, okay? I myself, let me explain why it grabbed me. Recently, I received something that normally costs several tens of thousands of dollars. Put it that way. Several tens of thousands of dollars. I didn't pay a dime for it. Now, the way in which I received it, totally legal, totally ethical, but the way in which I received it would not be the preferred way that I would have liked to receive it. I would have rather had the money, the cash money, and go out and just purchase it. That would be my preference if I could state it. Right? But I have lots of other obligations and things, and who knows what else got in the way of that preferred way. Right? Like it did with the lady with the hat. So I remember kind of asking God like, I honestly, I mean, this was very recently. I said, well, why don't you give me the money? I would rather just have the cash to get the item that I need rather than have it this way. Why must it always be this way? Because this has happened more than once. It's actually a pattern. So God kind of pointed me to this story of Neville. I've just been searching through some of his text lectures, and this one really grabbed me. Just like the lady with the hat, she would have never spent $17.50, $400 or so in today's money on a new hat for herself, because she had all these other obligations that she would have taken care of first. She would have been, what she considers more responsible with the money. But she really wanted the hat. So, her infinite being all wise and knowing, got her the hat in a way in which she wouldn't have to make that choice. So it's very identical to my situation that I asked God about. And God's basically pointing to this story and saying, there you go, pal. That's why, that's why you got what you needed in the way you got it. Because I know best how to deliver it. It's not for you to decide how you receive what you need, but you will get it. You'll just get it in my way, not your way. And maybe there's times your way and his way match up, but many times I guess they won't. So I hope that is useful to some of you. I try to find these things because you don't find many people on YouTube in this sector, this community, whatever, this subject matter, talking about things like this. And this is straight from Neville Goddard. This is very enlightening and very useful in how to explain some of this stuff. And it's all in Neville's lectures a lot of times, if you look. So, again, I hope you enjoy it and you find it enlightening. And there's more to this, this story. You could do a deep dive into this lecture. Again, this one is Your Creative Power from 1965. And again, you can find these on Cool Wisdom Books. I'll give these people a plug because it's a really nice website with a lot of his text lectures. You could hunt around and read these things when you have time to sit and read. And I was on lunch today at work, and I read this, and I was like, wow. I sent myself the link. I said, I need to talk about this to YouTube and let the people know about this one, because this is great. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Share my channel out to people. I appreciate it. I'd like to start growing this thing again. All right, thanks. See you later.